The Forgotten Books of Eden, we're starting with chapter 41, the first human thirst. Verse 1. Then Adam took the fig and laid it on the golden rods. Eve also took her fig and put it on the incense. And the weight of each fig was that of a watermelon, for the fruit of the garden was much larger than the fruit of this land. But Adam and Eve remained standing and fasting the whole of that night until the morning dawn. When the sun rose, they were still praying, but after they had finished praying, Adam said to Eve, "O Eve, come let us go to the border of the garden looking south, to the place from where the river flows and is parted into 4 heads. There we will pray to mighty God Ahiah and ask him to give us some of the water of life to drink. For mighty God Ahiah has not fed us with the tree of life in order that we may not live. Therefore we will ask him to give us some of the water of life and to quench our thirst with it, rather than with a drink of water of this land." When Eve heard these words from Adam, she agreed, and they both got up and came to the southern border of the garden, at the edge of the river of water, a short distance from the garden. And they stood and prayed before mighty God Ahiah, and asked him to look at them this once, to forgive them, and to grant them their request. After this prayer from both of them, Adam began to pray with his voice before mighty God Ahiah, and said, "O Ahiah, my King, mighty God, and Father, my Creator, when I was in the garden and saw the water that flowed from under the tree of life, my heart did not desire, neither did my body require to drink of it. Neither did I know thirst, for I was living, and above that which I am now, so that in order to live I did not require any food of life, neither did I drink of the water of life. But now, O Elohi Ahiah, I am dead, my flesh is parched with thirst. Give me of the water of life, that I may drink of it and live. Of your mercy, O Elohi Ahiah, save me from these plagues and trials, and bring me into another land different from this. If you will not let me live in your garden," this is substantiated by Genesis 3:7, whereby the leaves of the fig trees were large enough that Adam and Eve could fashion garments from them. Chapter 42, a promise of the water of life, the third prophecy of the coming of the Messiah, the Word, Yeshua. Verse 1. Then came the word of Elohi Ahiah to Adam, and said to him, "O Adam, as to what you said, bring me into a land where there is rest. It is not another land than this, but it is the kingdom of heaven, where alone there is rest. But you cannot make your interest into it at present, but only after your judgment is past and fulfilled. Then will I make you go up into the kingdom of heaven, you and your righteous descendants, and I will give you and them the rest you ask for at present. And if you said, 'Give me of the water of life, that I may drink and live,' it cannot be this day, but on the day that I shall descend into hell, and break the gates of brass, and bruise in pieces the kingdoms of iron. Then will I in mercy save your soul and the souls of the righteous, to give them rest in my garden. And that shall be when the end of the world is come. And again, in regards to the water of life you seek, it will not be granted you this day, but on the day that I shall shed my blood on your head in the land of Golgotha. For my blood shall be the water of life to you at that time, and not to just you alone, but to all your descendants who shall believe in me, that it be to them for rest forever." Ahiah said again to Adam, "O Adam, when you were in the garden, these trials did not come to you. But since you transgressed my commandment, all these sufferings have come over you. Now, also does your flesh require food and drink. Drink then of that water that flows by you on the face of the earth." Then Elohi Ahiah withdrew his word, Yeshua, from Adam. And Adam and Eve worshipped Ahiah, and returned from the river of water to the cave. It was noonday, and when they drew near to the cave, they saw a large fire by it. Chapter 43. The devil attempts arson. Verse 1. Then Adam and Eve were afraid and stood still. And Adam said to Eve, "What is that fire by our cave? We have done nothing in it to cause this fire. We neither had bread to bake therein, nor broth to cook there. As to this fire, we have never known anything like it. Neither do we know that what to call it. But ever since El Elohim sent the cherub with a sword of fire that flashed and lightened in his hand, from fear of which we fell down and were like corpses, have we not seen the like? But now, O Eve, behold, this is the same fire that was in the cherub's hand, which El Elohim has sent to keep the cave in which we live. O Eve, it is because El Elohim is angry with us and will drive us from it. O Eve, we have again transgressed his commandment in that cave, so that he had sent this fire to burn around it and to prevent us from going into it. If this be really so, O Eve, where shall we live? And where shall we flee from before the face of Ahiah? Since in regards to the garden, he will not let us live in it, and he has deprived us of the good things thereof. But he has placed us in this cave, in which we have borne darkness, trials, and hardship, until at last we have found comfort therein. But now that he has brought us out into another land, who knows what may happen in it? And who knows but that the darkness of that land may be far greater than the darkness of this land? Who knows what may happen in that land by day or by night? And who knows whether it will be far or near, O Eve? Where it will please El Elohim to put us, may be far from the garden, O Eve, or where El Elohim will prevent us from beholding him, because we have transgressed his commandment, and because we have made request of him at all times. O Eve, if El Elohim will bring us into a strange land other than this, in which we find consolation, it must be to put our souls to death and blot out our name from the face of the earth. O Eve, if we are further alienated from the garden and from mighty God Ahiah, where shall we find him again, and ask him to give us gold, incense, myrrh, and some fruit of the fig tree? Where shall we find him to comfort us a second time? Where shall we find him that he may think of us as regards the covenant he has made on our behalf? Then Adam said no more, and they kept looking for, back that up, verse 13. Then Adam said no more, and they kept looking, he and Eve, toward the cave, and at the fire that flared up around it. But that fire was from Satan, for he had gathered trees and dry grasses, and had carried and brought them to the cave, and had set fire to them, in order to consume the cave and what was in it, so that Adam and Eve should be left in sorrow, and he should cut off their trust in mighty God Ahiah, and make them deny him. But by the mercy of mighty God Ahiah he could not burn the cave, for mighty God Ahiah sent his angel around the cave to guard it from such a fire, until it went out. And this fire lasted for noonday until the break of day. That was the 45th day. Chapter 44. The power of fire over man. Yet Adam and Eve were standing and looking at the fire, and unable to come near the cave from their dread of the fire. And Satan kept on bringing trees and throwing them into the fire, until the flames of the fire rose up on high, and covered the whole cave, thinking as he did in his own mind to consume the cave with much fire. But the angel of mighty God Ahiah was guarding it, and yet he could not curse Satan, nor injure him by word, because he had no authority over him, neither did he take to doing so with words from his mouth. Therefore the angel tolerated him without saying one bad word, until the word Yeshua of Elohi Ahiah came, who said to Satan, "Go away from here. Once before you deceived my servants, and this time you seek to destroy them. Were it not for my mercy, I would have destroyed you and your hosts from off the earth. But I have had patience with you until the end of the world." Then Satan fled from before mighty God Ahiah. But the fire went on burning around the cave like a coal fire the whole day, which was the 46th day Adam and Eve had spent since they came out of the garden. And when Adam and Eve saw that the heat of the fire had somewhat cooled down, they began to walk toward the cave to get into it as they usually did. But they could not by reason of the heat of the fire. Then they both began crying because of the fire that separated them from the cave and that came towards them burning. And they were afraid. Then Adam said to Eve, "See this fire of which we have a portion in us, which formerly yielded to us, but no longer does so. Now that we have transgressed the limit of creation and changed our condition, and our nature is altered, but the fire is not changed in its nature, nor altered from its creation. Therefore it now has power over us, and when we come near it, it scorches our flesh." Chapter 45. Why Satan didn't fulfill his promises. Description of hell. Verse 1. Then Adam rose and prayed to Elohi Ahiah, saying, "See, this fire has separated us from the cave in which you have commanded us to live. But now, behold, we cannot go into it." Then Elohi Ahiah heard Adam and sent his word that said, "O Adam, see this fire, how different the flame and heat thereof are from the garden of delights and the good things in it. When you were under my control, all creatures yielded to you, but after you have transgressed my commandment, they all rise over you." Elohi Ahiah said again to him, "See, O Adam, how Satan has exalted you. He has deprived you of the mighty God, the Godhead, and of an altered state like me, and has not kept his word to you, but has after all become your enemy. He is the one who made the fire in which he meant to burn you and Eve. Why, O Adam, has he not kept his agreement with you? Not even one day, but has deprived you of the glory that was on you, when you yielded to his command. Do you think, Adam, that he loved you when he made this agreement with you? Or that he loved you and wished to raise you on high? But no, Adam, he did not do all that out of love to you, but he wished to make you come out of the light into darkness, and from an exalted state to degradation, from glory to abasement, from joy to sorrow, and from rest to fasting and fainting." Elohi Ahiah also said to Adam, "See this fire kindled by Satan around your cave. See this wonder that surrounds you, and know that it will encompass about both you and your descendants, when you obey his command, that he will plague you with fire, and that you will go down into hell after you are dead. And you will see the burning of his fire that will be burning around you, and likewise your descendants. You will not be delivered from it until my coming. Just like you cannot go into your cave right now, because of the great fire around it. Now, not until my word, Yeshua, comes and make a way for you on the day my covenant is fulfilled. There is no way for you at present to come from this life to rest, not until my word, Yeshua, comes, who is my word. Then he will make a way for you, and you shall have rest." Then mighty God Ahiah called with his word to go to the fire that burned around the cave, that it split itself in half, until Adam had gone through it. Then the fire parted itself by Elohi Ahiah's order, and a way was made for Adam. And Elohi Ahiah withdrew his word, Yeshua, from Adam. Chapter 46. How many times have I delivered you out of his hand? Verse 1. Then Adam and Eve began again to come into the cave. And when they came to the way between the fire, Satan blew into the fire like a whirlwind and caused a burning coal fire to cover Adam and Eve, so that their bodies were singed, and the coal fire scorched them. And from the burning of the fire Adam and Eve screamed and said, "O Ahiah, save us! Leave us not to be consumed and plagued by this burning fire, neither require us for having transgressed your commandment." Then mighty God Ahiah looked at their bodies on which Satan had caused fire to burn. And mighty God Ahiah sent his angel that stayed the burning fire. But the wounds remained on their bodies. And mighty God Ahiah said to Adam, "See Satan's love for you, who pretended to give you the Godhead and greatness, and behold, he burns you with fire, and seeks to destroy you from off the earth. Then look at me, O Adam. I created you, and how many times have I delivered you out of his hand? If not, wouldn't he have destroyed you?" Elohim said again to Eve, "What is that he promised you in the garden, saying, As soon as you eat from the tree, your eyes will be opened, and you shall become like me, knowing good and evil? But look, he has burnt your bodies with fire, and has made you taste the taste of fire, for the taste of the garden, and has made you see the burning of fire, and the evil of it, and the power it has over you. Your eyes have seen the good he has taken from you, and in truth he has opened your eyes. And you have seen the garden in which you were with me, and you have also seen the evil that has come over you from Satan. But as to the Godhead, he cannot give it to you, neither fulfill his speech to you. No, he was bitter against you and your descendants that will come after you." And Elohim withdrew his word from them. Chapter 47, the devil's own scheming. Verse 1. Then Adam and Eve came into the cave, yet trembling at the fire that had scorched their bodies. So Adam said to Eve, "Look, the fire has burnt our flesh in this world, but how will it be when we are dead? And Satan shall punish our souls. Is not our deliverance long and far off? Unless mighty God Ahiah come and in mercy to us fulfill his promise." And Adam and Eve passed into the cave, blessing themselves for coming into it once more. For it was in their thoughts that they never should enter it, when they saw the fire around it. But as the sun was setting, the fire was still burning and nearing Adam and Eve in the cave, so that they could not sleep in it. After the sun had set, they went out of it. This was the 47th day after they came out of the garden. Adam and Eve then came under the top of hill by the garden to sleep, as they were accustomed. And they stood and prayed Elohim to forgive them their sins, and then fell asleep under the summit of the mountain. But Satan, the hater of all good, thought within himself, whereas Elohim has promised salvation to Adam by covenant, and that he would deliver him out of all the hardships that have befallen him, but has not promised me by covenant, and will not deliver me out of my hardships. No, since he has promised him that he should make him and his descendants live in the kingdom in which I once was. I will kill Adam. The earth shall be rid of him, and shall be left to me alone, so that when he is dead, he may not have any descendants left to inherit the kingdom that shall remain my own realm. Mighty God Ahiah will then be wanting me, and he will restore it to me and my host. Chapter 48. The fifth apparition of Satan to Adam and Eve. After this, Satan called to his host, all of which came to him, and said to him, "O our Lord, what will you do?" He then said to them, "You know that this Adam, whom mighty God Ahiah created out of the dust, is the one who has taken our kingdom. Come, let us gather together and kill him, or hurl a rock at him and Eve, and crush them under it." When Satan's host heard these words, they came to the part of the mountain where Adam and Eve were asleep. Then Satan and his host took a huge rock, broad and even, and without blemish, thinking within himself, if there shall be a hole in the rock, when it fell on them, the hole in the rock might come over them, and so they would escape and not die. He then said to his host, take up this stone and throw it flat on them, so that it doesn't roll off them to somewhere else. And when you have hurled it, get away from there quickly. And they did as he told them. But as the rock fell down from the mountain toward Adam and Eve, mighty God Ahai commanded the rock to become a dome over them, that did them no harm. And so it was by El Elohi Ahai's order. But when the rock fell, the whole earth quaked with it, and was shaken from the sides of the rock. And as it quaked and shook, Adam and Eve awoke from sleep, and found themselves under a dome of rock. But they didn't know what had happened, because when they fell asleep, they were under the sky and not under a dome. And when they saw it, they were afraid. Then Adam said to Eve, wherefore has the mountain bent itself, and the earth quake and shaken on our account? And why has this rock spread itself over us like a tent? Does El Elohi Ahai intend to plague us and to shut us up in this prison? Or will he close the earth over us? He is angry with us for our having come out of the cave without his order, and for our having done so of our own accord without consulting him, when we left the cave and came to this place. Then Eve said, if indeed the earth quake for our sake, and this rock forms a tent over us because of our transgression, then we will be sorry, O Adam, because our punishment will be long. But get up and pray to mighty God Ahai to let us know concerning this, and what this rock is that is spread over us like a tent. And Adam stood up and prayed before mighty God Ahai to let him know what had brought about this difficult time. And Adam stood praying like that until the morning. Chapter 49, the first prophecy of the resurrection. Then the word Yeshaya of El Elohi Ahai came and said, O Adam, who counseled you when you came out of the cave to come to this place? And Adam said to El Elohi Ahai, O Ahai, we came to this place because of the heat of the fire that came over us inside the cave. Then Ahai El Elohi said to Adam, O Adam, you dread the heat of fire for one night, but how will it be when you live in hell? Yet, O Adam, don't be afraid and don't believe that I have placed this dome of rock over you to plague you with it. It came from Satan, who had promised you the Godhead and majesty. It is he who threw down this rock to kill you under it, and Eve with you, and thus to prevent you from living on the earth. But in mercy for you, just as the rock was falling down on you, I commanded it to form a dome over you, and the rock under you to lower itself. And this sign, O Adam, will happen to me at my coming on earth. Satan will raise the people of the Jews to put me to death, and they will lay me in a rock and seal a large stone over me, and I shall remain within that rock 3 days and 3 nights. But on the 3rd day I shall rise again, and it shall be salvation to you, O Adam, and to your descendants, to believe in me. But, O Adam, I will not bring you from under this rock until 3 days and 3 nights have passed. And El Elohi Ahai withdrew his word from Adam. But Adam and Eve lived under the rock 3 days and 3 nights, as mighty God Ahai had told them. And mighty God Ahai did so to them because they had left their cave and had come to this same place without mighty God Ahai's order. But after 3 days and 3 nights, mighty God Ahai created an opening in the dome of rock and allowed them to get out from under it. Their flesh was dried up, and their eyes and hearts were troubled from crying and sorrow. Chapter 50. Adam and Eve seek to cover their nakedness. Verse 1. Then Adam and Eve went forth and came into the cave of treasures, and they stood praying in it the whole of that day, until the evening. And this took place at the end of the 50 days after they had left the garden. But Adam and Eve rose again and prayed to mighty God Ahia in the cave the whole of that night, and begged for mercy from him. When the day dawned, Adam said to Eve, "Come, let us go and do some work for our bodies." So they went out of the cave and came to the northern border of the garden, and they looked for something to cover their bodies with. But they found nothing and knew not how to do the work. Yet their bodies were stained, and they were speechless from cold and heat. Then Adam stood and asked Elohim to show him something with which to cover their bodies. Then came the word of Elohim and said to him, "O Adam, take Eve and come to the seashore where you fasted before. There you will find skins of sheep that were left after lions ate the carcasses. Take them and make garments for yourselves and clothe yourselves with them." Chapter 51. What is his beauty that you should have followed him? Verse 1. When Adam heard these words from mighty God Ahia, he took Eve and went from the northern end of the garden to the south of it, by the river of water where they once fasted. But as they were going on their way, and before they got there, Satan the wicked one had heard the word of Elohim communing with Adam respecting his covering. It grieved him, and he hastened to the place where the sheepskins were, with the intention of taking them and throwing them into the sea, or of burning them with fire, so that Adam and Eve would not find them. But as he was about to take them, the word of Elohim came from heaven, and bound him by the side of those skins until Adam and Eve came near him. But as they got closer to him, they were afraid of him and of his hideous look. Then came the word of Elohim to Adam and Eve, and said to them, "This is he who had hidden in the serpent, and who deceived you, and stripped you of your garment of light and glory in which you were. This is he who promised you majesty and divinity. Where then is the beauty that was on him? Where is his divinity? Where is his light? Where is the glory that rested on him? Now his figure is hideous. He is become abominable among angels, and he has come to be called Satan. O Adam, he wished to take from you this earthly garment of sheepskins, and to destroy it, and not let you be covered with it. What then is his beauty that you should have followed him? And what have you gained by obeying him? See his evil works, and then look at me, your creator, and at the good deeds I do you. See, I bound him until you came and saw him and beheld his weakness, that no power is left with him. And Elohim released him from his bonds." Chapter 52. Adam and Eve sewed their first shirts. Verse 1. After this, Adam and Eve said no more, but cried before mighty God Ahia on account of their creation and of their bodies that require an earthly covering. Then Adam said to Eve, "O Eve, this is the skin of beast with which we shall be covered. But when we put it on, behold, we shall be wearing a token of death on our bodies. Just as the owners of these skins have died and have wasted away, so also shall we die and pass away." Then Adam and Eve took the skins and went back to the cave of treasures. And when in it, they stood and prayed as they were accustomed. And they thought how they could make garments of those skins, for they had no skills for it. Then mighty God Ahia sent to them his angel to show them how to work it out. And the angel said to Adam, "Go forth and bring some palm thorns." Then Adam went out and brought some as the angel had commanded him. Then the angel began before them to work out the skins, after the manner of one who prepareth a shirt. And he took the thorns and stuck them into the skins before their eyes. Then the angel again stood up and prayed, Elohim, that the thorns in those skins should be hidden, so as to be, as it were, sewn with one thread. And so it was, by Elohim's order, they became garments for Adam and Eve, and he clothed them therewith. From that time, the nakedness of their bodies was covered from the sight of each other's eyes. And this happened at the end of the 51st day. Then when Adam's and Eve's bodies were covered, they stood and prayed and sought mercy of mighty God Ahiah and forgiveness, and gave him thanks for that he had mercy on them, and had covered their nakedness. And they ceased not from prayer the whole of that night. Then when the morning dawned at the rising of the sun, they said their prayers after their custom, and then went out of the cave. And Adam said to Eve, Since we don't know what there is to the west of this cave, let us go out and see it today. Then they came forth and went toward the western border. Chapter 53. The prophecy of the western lands and of the great flood. Verse 1. They were not very far from the cave when Satan came towards them and hid himself between them and the cave, under the form of two ravenous lions, 3 days without food. They came towards Adam and Eve, as if to break them into pieces and devour them. Then Adam and Eve cried and prayed Elohim Ahiah to deliver them from their paws. Then the word of Elohim Ahiah came to them, and drove away the lions from them. And mighty God Ahiah said to Adam, O Adam, what do you seek on the western border? And why have you left of thine own accord the eastern border, in which was your living place? Now then, turn back to your cave, and remain in it, so that Satan won't deceive you or work his purpose over you. For in this western border, O Adam, there will go from you a descendant that shall replenish it, and that will defile themselves with their sins and with their yielding to the command of Satan, and by following his word. Therefore will I bring over them the waters of a flood, and overwhelm them all. But I will deliver what is left of the righteous among them, and I will bring them to a distant land, and the land in which you live now shall remain desolate and without one inhabitant in it. After Elohim Ahiah had thus spoken to them, they went back to the cave of treasures. But their flesh was dried up, and they were weak from fasting and praying, and from the sorrow they felt at having trespassed against mighty God Ahiah. Chapter 54. Adam and Eve go exploring. Then Adam and Eve stood up in the cave and prayed the whole of that night until the morning dawned. And when the sun was risen, they both went out of the cave. The heads were wandering from the heaviness of sorrow, and they didn't know where they were going. They walked in that condition to the southern border of the garden, and they began to go up that border until they came to the eastern border, beyond which there was no more land. And the cherub who guarded the garden was standing at the western gate and guarding it against Adam and Eve, as they should suddenly come into the garden. And the cherub turned around as if to put them to death, according to the commandment of Elohim Ahiah and given him. When Adam and Eve came to the eastern border of the garden, thinking in their hearts that the cherub was not watching, as they were standing by the gate as if wishing to go in, suddenly the cherub with a flashing sword of fire in his hand, and when he saw them, he went forth to kill them. He was afraid that mighty God Ahiah would destroy him if they went into the garden without his order. And the sword of the cherub seemed to shoot flames a distance away from it. But when he raised it over Adam and Eve, the flames of the sword did not flash forth. Therefore the cherub thought that mighty God Ahiah was favorable to them, and was bringing them back into the garden. And the cherub stood wondering. He could not go up to heaven to determine mighty God Ahiah's order regarding their getting into the garden. He therefore continued to stand by them, unable as he was to put part from them. For he was afraid that if they should enter the garden without permission, mighty God Ahiah would destroy him. When Adam and Eve saw the cherub coming toward them with a flaming sword of fire in his hand, they fell on their faces from fear, and were as dead. At that time the heavens and the earth shook, and another cherubim came down from heaven to the cherub who guarded the garden, and saw him amazed and silent. Then again other angels came down close to the place where Adam and Eve were. They were divided between joy and sorrow. They were glad because they thought mighty God Ahia was favorable to Adam and wished him to return to the garden, and wished to restore him to the gladness he once enjoyed. But they sorrowed over Adam because he was fallen like a dead man, he and Eve. And they said in their thoughts, Adam has not died in this place, but mighty God Ahia has put him to death for having come to this place and wishing to get into the garden without his permission. Chapter 55. The conflict between mighty God Ahia and Satan. Then came the word of Elohim Ahia to Adam and Eve, and raised them from their dead state, saying to them, Why did you come up here? Do you intend to go into the garden from which I brought you out? It cannot be today, but only when the covenant I have made with you is fulfilled. Then Adam, when he heard the word of mighty God Ahia and the fluttering of the angels, whom he did not see, but only heard the sounds of them with his ears, he and Eve cried and said to the angels, O spirits who wait on mighty God Ahia, look at me and at my being unable to see you. For when I was in my former bright nature, then I could see you. I sang praises as you do, and my heart was far above you. But now that I have transgressed, that bright nature is gone from me, and I am come into this miserable state. And now I have come to this, that I cannot see you, and you do not serve me like you used to do, for I have become animal flesh. Yet now, O angels of mighty God Ahia, ask mighty God Ahia with me to restore me to that wherein I was formerly, to rescue me from this misery, and to remove from me the sentence of death he passed on me, for having trespassed against him. Then when the angels heard these words, they all grieved over him, and cursed Satan who had misled Adam, until he came from the garden to misery, from life to death, from peace to trouble, and from gladness to a strange land. Then the angels said to Adam, You obeyed Satan and ignored the word of mighty God Ahia who created you, and you believed that Satan would fulfill all he had promised you. But now, O Adam, we will make known to you what came over us though him before his fall from heaven. He gathered together his host and deceived them, promising to give them a great kingdom, a divine nature, and other promises he made them. His host believed that his word was true, so they yielded to him and renounced the glory of mighty God Ahia. He then sent for us according to the orders in which we were to come under his command and to accept his vain promise. But we would not, and we did not take his advice. Then after he had fought with mighty God Ahia and had dealt forwardly with him, he gathered together his host and made war with us. And if it had not been for mighty God Ahia's strength that was with us, we could not have prevailed against him to hurl him from heaven. But when he fell from among us, there was great joy in heaven because of his going down from us. For if he had remained in heaven, nothing, not even one angel, would have remained in it. But mighty God Ahia in his mercy drove him from among us to this dark earth, for he had become darkness itself and a worker of unrighteousness. And he had continued, O Adam, to make war against you until he tricked you and made you come out of the garden to this strange land, where all these trials had come to you. And death, which mighty God Ahia brought to him, he has also brought to you, O Adam, because you obeyed him and trespassed against mighty God Ahia. And all the angels rejoiced and praised mighty God Ahia, and asked him not to destroy Adam this time for his having sought to enter the garden, but to bear with him until the fulfillment of the promise, and to help him in this world until he was free from Satan's hand. Chapter 56. a chapter of divine comfort. Then came the word of mighty God Ahai to Adam and said to him, O Adam, look at that garden of joy and at this earth of toil. And behold, the garden is full of angels, but look at yourself alone on this earth, with Satan whom you obeyed. Yet, if you had submitted and been obedient to me, and had kept my word, you would be with my angels in my garden. But when you transgressed and obeyed Satan, you became his guest among his angels that are full of wickedness, and you came to this earth that brings forth to you thorns and thistles. O Adam, ask him who deceived you to give you the divine nature he promised you, or to make you a garden as I had made for you, or to fill you with the same bright nature with which I had filled you. Ask him to make you a body like the one I made you, or to give you a day of rest as I gave you, or to create within you a reasonable soul as I created for you, or to take you from here to some other earth than this one which I gave you. But, O Adam, he will not fulfill even one of the things he told you. Acknowledge, then, my favor towards you and my mercy on you, my creature, that I have not avenged you for your transgression against me. But I, in my pity for you, I have promised you that at the end of the great 5.5 days I will come and save you. Then Elohim said again to Adam and Eve, Get up, go down from here, before the cherub with a sword of fire in his hand destroys you. But Adam's heart was comforted by mighty God Ahai's words to him, and he worshipped before him. And Elohim commanded his angels to escort Adam and Eve to the cave with joy, instead of the fear that had come over them. Then the angels took up Adam and Eve and brought them down from the mountain by the garden with songs and psalms until they arrived at the cave. There the angels began to comfort and to strengthen them, and then departed from them towards heaven to their Creator, who had sent them. But after the angels had departed from Adam and Eve, Satan came with shamefacedness and stood at the entrance of the cave in which were Adam and Eve. He then called to Adam and said, O Adam, come, let me speak to you. Then Adam came out of the cave, thinking he was one of mighty God Ahai's angels that was come to give him some good counsel. Chapter 57. Therefore I fell. Verse 1. But when Adam came out and saw his hideous figure, he was afraid of him and said to him, Who are you? Then Satan answered and said to him, It is I who hid myself within the serpent, and who spoke to Eve, and who enticed her until she obeyed my command. And I am he who sent her, using my deceitful speech, to deceive you until you both ate of the fruit of the tree and abandoned the command of mighty God Ahai. But when Adam heard these words from him, he said to him, Can you make me a garden as mighty God Ahai made for me? Or can you clothe me in the same bright nature in which mighty God Ahai had clothed me? Where is the divine nature you promised to give me? Where is that slick speech of yours that you had with us at first, when we were in the garden? Then Satan said to Adam, Do you think that when I had promised one something that I would actually deliver it to him or fulfill my word? Of course not, for I myself have never even thought of obtaining what I promised. Therefore I fell, and I made you fall by that for which I myself fell. And with you also whosoever accepts my counsel falls thereby. But now, O Adam, because you fell, you are under my rule, and I am king over you, because you had obeyed me and have transgressed against your mighty God. Neither will there be any deliverance from my hands until the day promised you by your mighty God. Again he said, Because we do not know the day agreed on with you by your mighty God, nor the hour in which you shall be delivered. For that reason we will multiply war and murder on you and your descendants after you. This is our will and our good pleasure, that we may not leave one of the sons of men to inherit our orders in heaven. For as to our home, O Adam, it is in burning fire, and we will not stop our evil doing, no, not 1 day nor 1 hour. And I, O Adam, shall set you on fire when you come into the cave to live there. When Adam heard these words, he cried and mourned and said to Eve, Hear what he said? That he won't fulfill any of what he told you in the garden? Did he really then become king over us? But we will ask mighty God Ahai, who created us, to deliver us out of his hand. Chapter 58, about sunset on the 53rd day. Then Adam and Eve spread their hands before mighty God Ahai, praying and begging him to drive Satan away from them so that he can't harm them or force them to deny mighty God. Then Elohim sent to them at once his angel, who drove away Satan from them. This happened about sunset on the 53rd day after they had come out of the garden. Then Adam and Eve went into the cave and stood up and turned their faces to the ground to pray to mighty God Ahai. But before they prayed, Adam said to Eve, Look, you have seen what temptations have befallen us in this land. Come, let us get up and ask mighty God Ahai to forgive us the sins we have committed, and we will not come out until the end of the day next to the 40th. And if we die in here, he will save us. Then Adam and Eve got up and joined together in entreating mighty God Ahai. They continued praying like this in the cave. Neither did they come out of it, by night or by day, until their prayers went up out of their mouth like a flame of fire. Chapter 59, the 8th apparition of Satan to Adam and Eve. Verse 1. But Satan, the hater of all good, did not allow them to finish their prayers, for he called to his host, and they came, all of them. Then he said to them, Since Adam and Eve, whom we deceive, have agreed together to pray to mighty God Ahai day and night, and to beg him to deliver them, and since they will not come out of the cave until the end of the 40th day, and since they will continue their prayers as they had both agreed to do, that he will deliver them out of our hands and restore them to their former state. See what we shall do to them. And his host said to him, Power is thine, O our Lord, to do what you list. Then Satan, great in wickedness, took his host and came into the cave in the 30th night of the 40 days and 1. And he beat Adam and Eve until he left them dead. Then came the word of mighty God Ahai to Adam and Eve, who raised them from their suffering. And mighty God Ahai said to Adam, Be strong, and be not afraid of him who has just come to you. But Adam cried and said, Where were you, O mighty God Ahai, that they should punish me with such blows, and that this suffering should come over us, over me and over Eve, your handmaiden? Then mighty God Ahai said to him, O Adam, see, he is Lord and Master of all you have, he who said he would give you divinity. Where is this love for you? And where is the gift he promised? Did it please him just once, O Adam, to come to you, comfort you, strengthen you, rejoice with you, or send his host to protect you? Because you have obeyed him and have yielded to his counsel and have followed his commandment and transgressed mine. Then Adam cried before mighty God Ahai and said, O Ahai, because I have transgressed a little, you have severely punished me in return for it. I ask you to deliver me out of his hands, or else have pity on me, and take my soul out of my body, now in this strange land. Then Elohim said to Adam, If only there had been this sighing and praying before you transgressed, then would you have rest from the trouble in which you are now. But mighty God Ahai had patience with Adam, and let him and Eve remain in the cave until they had fulfilled the 40 days. But as to Adam and Eve, their strength and flesh withered from fasting and praying, from hunger and thirst, for they have not tasted either food or drink since they left the garden, nor were the functions of their body yet settled. And they had no strength left to continue in prayer from hunger. and to the end of the next day, to the 40th. There were fallen down in the cave, yet what speech escaped from their mouth was only in praises. Chapter 60, the last chapter for today. The devil appears like an old man. He offers a place of rest. Verse 1. Then on the 89th day, Satan came to the cave, clad in a garment of light, and girt about with a bright girdle. In his hands was a staff of light, and he looked most awful, but his face was pleasant, and his speech was sweet. He thus transformed himself in order to deceive Adam and Eve, and to make them come out of the cave, before they had fulfilled the 40 days. For he said within himself, now that when they had fulfilled the 40 days, fasting and praying, mighty God Ahai will restore them to their former state. But if he did not do so, he would still be favorable to them. And even if he had not mercy on them, would he yet give them something from the garden to comfort them, as already twice before. Then Satan drew near the cave in their fair appearance, and said, O Adam, get up and stand up, you and Eve, and come along with me to a good land, and don't be afraid. I am flesh and bones like you. And at first I was a creature that mighty God Ahai created. And it was so that when he had created me, he placed me in a garden in the north on the border of the world. And he said to me, stay here. And I remained there according to his word, neither did I transgress his commandment. Then he made a slumber to come over me, and he brought you, O Adam, out of my side, but did not make you stay with me. But Elohim took you in his divine hand and placed you in a garden to the eastward. Then I worried about you for that while Elohim had taken you out of my side. He had not left you stay with me. But mighty God Ahai said to me, do not worry about Adam, whom I brought out of your side. No harm will come to him. For now I have brought out of his side a helpmeet for him, and I have given him joy by so doing. Then Satan said again, I did not know how it is you are in this cave, nor anything about this trial that has come over you, until mighty God Ahai said to me, behold, Adam has transgressed, he whom I had taken out of your side, and Eve also whom I took out of his side, and I have driven them out of the garden. I have made them live in a land of sorrow and misery, because they transgressed against me and have obeyed Satan. And look, they are in suffering until this day, the 80th. Then mighty God Ahai said to me, get up, go to them, and make them come to your place, and suffer not that Satan come near them, and afflict them. For they are now in great misery, and lie helpless from hunger. He further said to them, when you have taken them to yourself, give them to eat of the fruit of the tree of life, and give them to drink of the water of peace, and clothe them in a garment of light, and restore them to their former state of grace, and leave them not in misery, for they came from you. But grieve not over them, nor repent of that which has come over them. But when I heard this, I was sorry, and my heart could not patiently bear it for your sake, O my child. But, O Adam, when I heard the name of Satan, I was afraid, and I said within myself, I will not come out, because he might trap me as he did my children, Adam and Eve. And I said, O Elohim, when I got to my children, Satan will meet me in the way and war against me as he did against them. Then mighty God Ahai said to me, fear not. When you find him, hit him with the staff that is in thine hand, and don't be afraid of him, for you are of an old standing, and he shall not prevail against you. Then I said, Ahai, I am old and cannot go. Send your angels to bring them. But Ahai said to me, angels verily are not like them, and they will not consent to come with me. But I have chosen you, because they are your offspring and are like you, and they will listen to what you say. Ahai said further to me, if you don't have enough strength to walk, I will send a cloud to carry you and set you down at the entrance of their cave. Then the cloud will return and leave you there. And if they will come with you, I will send a cloud to carry you and them. Then he commanded a cloud, and it bare me up and brought me to you. And then we back. And now, O my children, O Adam and Eve, look at my old gray hair, and at my feeble state, and at my coming from that distant place. Come with me to a place of rest. Then he began to cry and to sob before Adam and Eve, and his tears poured on the ground like water. And when Adam and Eve raised their eyes and saw his beard and heard his sweet talk, their hearts softened toward him, and they obeyed him, for they believed he was true. And it seemed to them that they were really his offspring. Then when they saw this, his face was like their own, and they trusted in him. And we're going to stop at chapter 60. We'll begin with chapter 61 tomorrow. I want to thank you for listening.